Good morning. I am IQbian Organis, and today I'm going to speak to you about a very important topic you may not be too familiar with, although I believe everybody watching would have had some experience of it to some degree. We're going to talk about education, because not only is it important that one understands what truly is education, it would do well, or do us all well, to just have a run through into what makes education, where it came from and how it's developed, and who it is and whose duty it is to maintain that it is education. And I'm bringing this point up for this reason. What is going on in the universities, in many, and in some that I have encountered, is not the furtherance of education. It is a vile, prevalent, bullying, intimidated indoctrination. And it's Marxist indoctrination. I'm not going to get to exactly what it is. Now, I haven't got all the books and all my essays to hand. I've got enough to give you a flavour of what I'm talking about, the depth of knowledge I have on the subject, and that I am telling you something that is true. Because the Marxists will have you believe there is no truth. Now, first and foremost, let's just start this. My admission to you at this moment is that I am a creationist. I am a young earth creationist. I do not claim that the earth is 6,000 years old. So I take Professor John Lennox's point. Makes an interesting point, made me think, but I've never claimed it was 6,000 anyway. What I do know is, it's not millions and millions of years old. That is self-evident. And whilst I'm explaining to you about what is self-evident, okay, you have to do your work to agree with me. Because I can bet your bottom dollar, any dollar, $1, 10 pence, that you haven't done your work, but you agree with X amount of million. You've just gone with it. You've done no research, you've read not a book, you've not even heard a debate. Many of you. So, unless you've done something which is your duty before you follow like a sheep, you do some work. Okay? Now, when I talk about education, I'm talking about, I'm not talking about stage 1 education. And what I would term stage 1 education, I just made some basic notes. Education and the purpose of education. Well, stage 1 would be what you get from, let's say, once you hit an institution, i.e. possibly a nursery, to primary school, to secondary school, right up to college, right? From that point onwards, and you go to university, there is a marked difference in what you then receive. And interpreters education, believers in education, and the type of professors you're going to encounter. It's a complete chalk and cheese, right? Well, butter and cheese. Let's put it that way, butter and cheese. They're both products you can eat. Completely different, but made from similar properties. Okay, so what you do get in stage 1 education, you will get your comprehension, your English comprehension. We live in England, so let's start there. That's your spelling, your reading, your writing. Okay? And as you age through, go through the ages, it will develop. And you'll branch out into fictional writing and dialogue and all of that stuff, if you are into that. More textual writing will be to do with the academics. That's when you get to the other side. But whatever it is, what you mean will be clearly defined by the words you use, etc., and you would have all that business, right? I'm not going to go deep into that. Then you, of course, there's mathematics, because everybody's got to learn to count, so I'm not going to stay no time on that. Then there's art. Then there's your expression and your impression, okay? That which comes from you, which is artistic, and that which you see as being beautiful, your interpretation. I'm not going to go into that, it's self-evident. Then there's your sports. Everybody's got to keep fit. And if I were to go into some thoughts on education by John Locke, that's the 1600s, and Immanuel Kant on education, they both say, they even talk about the old Jamie Oliver, what you should be eating and giving children, believe it or not. But, you know, sport is something that's good for you, it's healthy and so forth. So you've got your ability and, you know, performance, ability, teamwork, all that stuff. And it's healthy, it's for your health. Right, then you've got tech. Now, in my day, tech was your metalwork, your woodwork, your arts and crafts, and now we have IT. And these are important faculties that's bringing into, I would include into, well, obviously, stage one again. Of course, when you go to university, some of these faculties can be more defined and developed and taken elsewhere. But I'm saying in stage one education, this is what you should get, this is what I'll give you. Your science, I would bring back the three divisions of science, your biology, chemistry and your physics. You need to know about your body, you need to know about the animal's body and the physics and how it works and so forth and how you maintain it, best foods to eat, etc. I mean, they've got sports science which tells you about what best foods, but we're keeping it at stage one, your basic introduction. And so you've got your chemistry elements, you know, because we live in an atmosphere of many different textures, atoms build, combine together to make, etc. So chemistry and physics ride similar. Well, let's go. One's a stallion and one's a stallion. The other one could be a Mustang, right? But they're both important things that we need, because we do need engineers. And I would say the sciences and physics is where we get engineers, and you know, that you do need for any society. You need your engineers, you need your road builders, your planners, your railway builders and so forth, your engine developers, your whatever technology, right? And my pet subject, one of my pet subjects, history. What just happened? Why did it happen? Who did it happen to? Where did it happen? Okay? Because if you know what happened in the past, you've got a pretty good idea what's going on there, and you can possibly prevent it happening in the future. History is vitally important. But as E.H. Carr says, it's, you know, it's, well, I'm not going to quote E.H. Carr because I can't remember the quote. But this is where education and the whole conversation revolves around. Because one historian could get paid by whosoever to say, just say you found it. Don't mention that. Just say this is why it happened. Okay? So I'm a revisionist because I've listened to mainstream historians and what they told us. And I've gone into it and I'm like, that's not even true. I'll give you an argument. We were told in primary school, and it's, you know, long held, Thomas Farrier, the King's Baker, was responsible for the 1666 fire of London. And most people, you know, we even went to the monument. Most people believe, yeah, it was the baker, poor baker, blah de blah de blah de blah. Christopher Wren rebuilt part of England, London, etc. However, what people do not know and they don't get the story of, this is just an example of historians getting there first and making sure you don't know who done it. It's not a who done it. It's a why haven't they done anything about it? Because you don't know who done it. Or maybe you don't. I do. There was an investigation as to why the fire took place. Okay? And several people, factions were known and mentioned as possible people who did it. I think I have the greatest argument to propose who did it, why they did it. So one of these days I will do that show, sorry about the suspense, I don't mean to be cruel. I don't mean to be cruel. But it is a touchy subject. And if I say certain things now, the education I'm going to give you, that's the end of it. You have to pick your fights, pick your battles, and, pick your time. So, let's put it this way. I think I know who done it, and I think you'll agree. And the strength of that is how well I cover this subject about education. So we're talking about phase 1 education. So I've gone through, and religious education. There is something that it angers me. Because I've bumped into so many professors and people who ought to know better. And they say, England is a secular country. And I just remind them, and I say, well, what do you think happened in 2012? Do you think it was cupcakes and bunting? And I'm amazed that they don't know. They gloss over, or they are Marxists and they hate Christianity. Okay? Now, I would defend Christianity because it's the game, the one game in town. And under a Christian rule, you can, come from wherever you come from. You can have your different religions. But, this is a safe haven. It's a Christian realm. And it's a proselytizing faith, which means I have the right to ask you, have you heard of the good news? Hear this. John such and such says that. I can do that. You don't like it, hop off. Find another safe haven, okay? Just because we don't kill each other, or people in this country, I should have bought the book on tolerance that John Locke wrote. I've got it. John Locke had to flee England because his denomination was in trouble. We're going to get there, and I'm going to build you into this. So, religious education is important because you've got a bunch of people saying all religions are the same. Here you go again. How many times have I done this? Maybe I should... You know what, it's my fault. You should turn your phone off. Anyway. So we're not talking about stage 1 education. Okay? But religious education is important. And I just wrote down the notes, trash. So we got that established. So I'm going to give you now a walkthrough of times past to times present, and then we're going to start looking at some of the books that I've got, quite a few. Now, most people might be aware that Western Europe, due to Constantine, had the religion, the cult, the following, the papacy. That being the Roman Universal, or they call it the Holy Roman Church. But I call it Roman Universal, because Catholic means universal. Now that's a branch, you could say it's of Christianity, but what did Jesus say and what do they do? I don't really classify it as Christianity, but they're entitled to what they want to believe, okay? Tolerance. But anyway, it was such that if you questioned it, didn't follow suit, in fact you had no freedom of speech, every thought came from the Roman Universal. Whole of Europe, that's how it was, that's how it is, end of story. It was like that until some conscious monks, men of the brethren, men of their cloth, began to question behaviour. And we'll get to that as well. And just remind myself, and I remind you, right? Behaviour of some priests, and of course the popes themselves. They were corrupt. If you go... one of these days I'll do a story, but there's loads of videos, and maybe I might attach a video to this video that you can look, or some links. I don't know what I'm going to do there. But they've been so corrupt, warmongering, greedy. It's been a disgusting abuse, but I wouldn't call it of God's word in the first place. And very little to do with Jesus. It really has very little to do with Jesus. I'm not attacking the Roman Catholics, but if you have a faith that uses, many will come in my name, many will use my name, in other words, so it fronts up Yeshua the Messiah, but worships his mum, and keeps creating different saints and worships them, and then they tell you to say, Father, yet Jesus said, call no man your father. Sorry. There's just too many things for me to get around now. I'm not saying people who don't know any better are bad people. But anyway, it was the only game in town. They cannot deny the ruthless nature of what it was, and they cannot deny the corruption that it was. Their own bishops began to quibble. Way down, right down, you talk about the 11th century. Can't remember the monk's name. But we move on. We understand, you may have heard of Wycliffe, who translated the Bible into Latin, and the Lollards that followed him. He was against some of this stuff. They would have killed him if they found him. Jan Hus from Czechoslovakia, I think it was. He was the one that you could say was the Martin Luther. They got him and killed him. Even down to what we would commonly call science. Copernicus. Did they kill Copernicus? I think they got Copernicus, but they didn't get Galileo Galilei. Because you've got the heliocentric and the geocentric. Now the Catholics think, oh yeah. We. Everything goes round us. The sun goes round us. Centre of the earth, geocentric. And Galileo said, right, but no. It's the other way around. Don't think yourself so important. So he maintained that until they started saying, Heil. They started sharpening up the stretch rack and all that stuff, and they said, listen, take it back, boy. Take that back. Okay. So he recanted. But it's well documented, you know. He meant what he meant, and it was true. But he recanted under duress because they were going to kill him. Literally, you know, the dogma, they'll kill you, right? But the Lord works in mysterious ways. First we have to feel the pain, because we're so arrogant. As human beings, we behave a certain way. And then there's an arrogance that thinks that we created ourselves, we just came here, and therefore we're important of what we think. And we think the most of ourselves, and everything that we know, that's the front of all knowledge. You don't need to think no more, because I thought for you. Or we swear, the orthodoxy says, the authorities say, our survey says, he says it, you can't criticise him, you can't even investigate him. It's a bit like, let me stop you right there. So the Lord works in mysterious ways, and there's an invention. It's the internet of today. It's the Gutenberg press, which means when a bishop by the name of Martin Luther, or monk, I'm not quite sure what his title was, bishop, monk, vicar, priest, cardinal, you know, whatever. I think he was a humble monk, and then he may have got a title. Well, anyway, he wrote his 95 Theses. These are criticisms of the church and things he saw. One of the most being that if you, in his day and in his region, the Pope would send out a man to sell indulgences, right? So he'll give you a official-looking paper, and you buy it for whatever it was, and he will promise that your sins will be forgiven, and your parents or your children who died, they will not rot in hell, they will be whatever the promise was. Okay, I didn't do the homework on the Catholicism because I'm not about beating down Catholicism. I'm just a historian, I'm not making a judgment. You make a judgment as I speak it, as it is. So they had this guy named John Tetzel. He was big news, man, he was big news. So everywhere he went, he'd come up with the coffers for the Pope, and he'd get his cut. And when Luther went to Rome, it was like Floyd Mayweather came to town. You know when Floyd Mayweather's having a fight, Las Vegas never earns anymore. That's like double Christmas. All the pimps are out there because everybody's coming to town. All the prostitutes are out there. Everybody's coming to town. So the thieves are out it, right on the steps of the blasted. You know, it's all going on. They're selling indulgences. They're selling. He went there and he's like disgusted. Came back and wrote the 95 Theses about what is not scriptural. And some of their, you know, hermeneutics. He just wasn't having it. The thing with Martin Luther, which saved him, that didn't save people like Jan Hus and many others, many a brave man within understanding the word. And this is all to do with education and knowledge, because back in the day, you only got your education from the preacher. Okay? When Augustine came to England and set up the first schools, it were, you know, about the word, and it was in about Latin. That was education. Otherwise, that you went to a guild, or you were a baker and son of a baker and son of a baker, you were a shoemaker, cobbler, and these were familial jobs, you know, and crafts and so forth. Where was I? Yes, the difference between the other guys who got burnt at the stake or put through the rack and whatnot and tortured to death was that when he wrote his 95 Theses and put it on the Wittenberg gate so everybody could see, the Gutenberg press pressed out loads of copies. They went everywhere. It was like, what do you call, on the internet when it become big, it was like that. It's the first of its kind. I forget what they call it. Social media. It got big on social media. I forget what it called. Anyway, right, just goes to show you how up there I am with social media. Veritable noise. So it went big, and it got into people's hands. People who could read. Most people couldn't. So people could read. People would gather. He would read it to the flock, the people, and everybody, you know what it is. Pennies drop. Yeah. That's true. At that point, we now have Rome. You have a problem. Houston, you got a problem, because people are not people going around there selling indulgences, and he's not coming back with the big bags of money anymore, and the whole treasure wagon full of Pope. So the Pope's, where's my money, man? You know, he's giving it like a pimp, like, where's my money? Where's the money at? You know? We gonna fight some wars, and how we going? And that's where you've got the breakaway, what we call the Reformation, right? Now you've got a breakaway from the Roman Catholics, and during that breakaway you've got the Romantic period, everybody, and put it this way, the hegemony that Rome had, that you couldn't pick up everybody. Certain countries broke away. England, Henry VIII, said, we're not having it. There's a nice looking girl and she's not of my faith, but she keep walking around with this book. That's another thing. You, the little people, couldn't have a Bible. Whereas the Protestants believe the word belongs to you, and everybody should read the words of God and Jesus himself. Read it for yourself. It's your soul, it's your business, it's knowledge that you should know. You can't sit down there and someone forgive your sins. Who is this someone? Who forgives your sins? That, you know, a little scriptural kind of, just remember what Jesus said and don't go with anybody else, is what I would say. Okay. So, she's running around with this, you know, and he's looking at her saying, Sid James style. He wants this girl. And, well, I don't know, it just, listen, serendipity, call it that. So he breaks away from the Roman Catholic Church and he makes himself sovereign and defender of the faith. This is now, from that point, a Catholic, a Christian country. No more Roman Catholicism. Tough for the queens who want to come in and all the rest of it. That's not it anymore. And the more you know, the more you know, and the more you're interested. It's a bit like tree of knowledge. They ain't gonna stop eating knowledge now they know. Do you know what I mean? Because it's one of those things. Once you know a bit, you kind of like the experience of knowing a bit. So, for the first time in Europe, people could actually say something. They're not in Rome, and they can write something about what they actually think about past scholars. Aristotle, was he right? Plato, was he right? You know, how clever were these guys? You could talk about everything and anything you wanted, okay? And that was the beginning of what we call the Enlightenment period, because no more could you, no one's expected, well, in the 1600s you had Bacon, you've also got John Locke, and Bacon designed a code of ethics to do with science. And his thing was, test it. Don't just tell me. Don't just tell me. He was kind of like anti-Aristotle, if you will. Cause, and there's this thing that even people do today. Because you're clever in one thing, because you've made money in one thing, because you're the heavyweight champion, then what you say must make sense, and therefore I don't question it. His thing was, test it. Is it repeatable and testable? The definition of what we call science, right? Is it observable, repeatable, testable, right? Because you said 1 and 1 is 2. Well, I've got one thing here and one thing here. Now I can test it. It's 2. Once scientific tested, we call it an axiom. An axiom is a fact. A fact is something that's a priori. A priori is all humans have 2 legs. And that's how they're born. We don't need to say, well, let's wait for a baby to be born. That human, generally speaking, humans have 2 legs. Okay? We don't need to go there. What they call priori, right? So we start to define what is fact, what is a theory, what is a hypothesis. Therefore, once and for all, defining that there is a method to find truth. Whether we find it in all matters is a different thing. But there is a method to define truth. And the method to define truth, if it's to do with the mind and what you think. The mind and what you think. Because people don't like when you think. They want to say they do the thinking for you, and if you step outside of that, there's a problem. Now, I like Voltaire, because Voltaire wrote a lot of things, and he investigated a lot of things, and he didn't care what you thought. And he was what I would call the first, what do I call him? Human rights activist, if you will. And Voltaire was like a rich boy, and everybody loved him because he wrote plays funny, and I think one of his hits was a book called Candide, play named Candide. And he really turned on the assumptions and the authorities and the rich, because, to be quite honest, they're a bit useless. Do you know what I mean? And they're a bit careless. And some people think that poor people are not to be seen and not to be heard, and the problems in which they have, it's because of them, they inherit it, because they're naturally poor, because almost as if it's a caste system. You're born into it, you're going to stay there, you don't know any better, you're not going to know any better, and we ain't going to do nothing about it. Right? This is a hangover from the medieval and Roman Catholicism, I would argue. Okay? So Voltaire said a lot. But I have to give some credit also to Immanuel Kant. And this book's called An Answer to the Question, What is Enlightenment? I'm just going to read the beginning of this. And I read a lot, but I'm not a great reader. And it says there, enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-incurred immaturity. If you're going to suck from the teat of somebody else all the time and never do any investigation, then you're a child. Child of God, I would argue, but a child. Immaturity is the inability to use one's own understanding without the guidance of another. This immaturity is self-incurred if its cause is not lack of understanding, but lack of resolution and courage to use it without the guidance of another. The motto of enlightenment is therefore, sapere aude, that's Latin for dare to be wise. Have courage to use your own understanding. Now, when he says this, he's not saying be ignorant, I don't know because I think I know. He's saying go out there and see it, speak it, write it, explain it, and share that knowledge. Don't let an authority say, you can't say that, you can't say that. You know, if you go there, then you're a certain name. So for me, sapere aude, was the moment. And you know directly, the truth hurts. That's the old mantra, or maxim. The old maxim, the truth hurts sometimes. And it does sometimes. Do you know what I mean? But when we're talking about society, and how we're going to build a society, maintain a society, I don't care about your feelings. Stuff. It's called growing up and becoming mature. Right? So because the church at the time, Roman Universal, told you stuff, and it proposed, it enforced it at dogmas, mantras, you know, there was there's lots of dogmas and mantras that you can't really prove within the Bible. I can't prove to you that God exists. I believe God exists. That's my belief, okay, that God exists. I will further say I know he exists and he's real to me. Some will say, well, produce him. And we'll go for the same, I'll tell you how silly it is. I know, and this is what they hate, I know love exists. I can't package it and say, this is love. But I could possibly show you a baby and say, this is an expression of love, where two people came together, and this is the gift of God, and our bond, and we have this baby. You can look at a couple walking hand in hand on a park. They're expressing their love, etc. And we can go right through. You can't actually tangibly see it though. You can only see an expression of it. It's a bit like gravity. You can't exactly see it, but you get an expression of it. But because you can't monetize it, I wouldn't put it past the people that control this world today. They want to say it doesn't exist. And, you know, ghosts and ghouls and spectres and spooks, you know, all of these things came under, you know, into question. That which you could not see, therefore it's dogma, therefore it's untrue. And why shouldn't it be questioned? Why shouldn't it be put through to science? There's something that science cannot deal with. But these are ongoing discussions. And we are talking about education, and we're talking about an understanding, a basis to where we are. So the whole of Enlightenment, there was nothing that could not be talked about. Reasoning, you know. You reason things out, you have debates. You write your thesis and someone else reads it, it becomes popular. They like your expression, they like your word, your prose, and they recognize you as an intellect. We would call them public intellectuals today. And those thoughts, that kind of new dawn, is called the Enlightenment period. And out of that we had Newton, a brilliant scientist. You had Kepler. You've got a lot of sciences on the boom. I mean, we're understanding ourselves. Human beings. Let's get this straight. Human beings, and I don't care what the Marxists say, we're going to get there. Human beings behave a certain way. Say it again. Human beings behave a certain way. Okay? And it doesn't matter where you come from. In this realm, and in this dimension, when you first breathe in this harsh air, it's so harsh because you're out of your mother's stomach. No matter where you are, you will cry. Okay? You may not cry initially because you may be in shock and sleep. But you will cry. All do that. You will even suckle. No one taught you that, but you will do it. And there is a thing called breast crawl. Did you know that it's been tested, so it's not just dogma. When the baby is born, if you rest it on the baby's stomach, the baby will find its way to the mother's breast and suckle. Okay, it's called breast crawl. Okay? There are just some things that babies do that we all do in growing up and exploring. We're just the most difficult to understand that we make mistakes along the way. If this was a brick, a plastic brick, that little toddler's going to put it in its mouth. In fact, it'll put everything to its mouth. Not just because it's teething, but this is the way it first gets to understand textures, okay? And it's still in that everything to the mouth is good, everything to the mouth is food of some sort. What is it? And teasing and so forth. So, behaviorism. You've heard of Pavlov's dog, and sometimes they say it's a lion and whatnot. But the Pavlov dog theory is if you have a dog in a maze and you ring the bell and you have a treat at the end of the bell, it will go for there, get the treat, okay, and eat the food. You remove the treat and that dog will always go straight looking for, because now he's conditioned. But we're a bit like that. We're easy to manipulate. In fact, someone can stand in front of you and, alright, let's caricature it. Swing the old watch and he'll hypnotise you because he knows what you're going to do now. And we all can be hypnotised. Some more easier than others. So behaviourism, I.B. Skinner. This is a fact. This destroys social constructionism. Okay? And we're going to talk about social constructionism in a minute. And what's going on in university. Well, I'm showing you that it's long established out of the Enlightenment period and into the 20th century that humans behave a certain way. Frogs and princesses. That's about neuro-linguistic programming. Okay? I've not done much work on Maslow, but again, it's to do with the human condition and how the human brain can be manipulated to get the human to do certain actions. It's a fact. And you can do these experiments yourself. I mean, we used to do it all the time in school. Somebody would, well, let's put it away. You've got a room full of starving people. You've got some fresh bread rolls and you throw it in there. You just lob them in there. What do you think will happen? Well, in my day in school, just after we're all hiked up after lunch with our sweet puddings and whatnot and had chocky bars and Biggie Cokes, we were waiting for the teacher to come in and all we need to know, somebody burst in the room and say, fight, fight, fight. And like the herd mentality. We'd all rush out. That didn't mean that we wanted to all get involved in a fight. We wanted to see we are humans and we behave a certain way. This is a fact, and I can spend a lot of time giving you different various examples after examples after example, scientific and your own experiences will come to mind. We behave a certain way. Do you know that we've discovered what the truth is coming out of the Enlightenment period? They call it the postmodernist world. And people who say postmodernist, they mean from they will call the medieval period the modernist world, and then they put the post and they say after that. Okay? I don't really buy those theories, but those are the ideas that were established before I came along. And who am I, little man, you gonna upset the apple cart? Yes, if I write about what I know and contextualize it and bring people through the historical route, from the Genesis, from an ontology upwards. So, we understand what truth, there is a truth. I believe there is a God. Now, during the 19th century, you know, everything's being questioned, even the existence of God. And you've got, sorry about me old slippers, Charles Darwin writes a book entitled On the Origin of the Species by Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favoured Races in the Struggle for Life. That's what the book title is called. And the idea here is follows his trip on the Beagle to the Galapagos Islands and what he saw with finch beaks and so forth, finch having different beaks. And the concept is this: over time, there is descent with modification, right? And he's got this idea of the tree of life, where essentially it all comes down to one small character that morphed into another. Now, Darwinian evolution is a very dodgy theory, because most people who profess, and all the professors do, all the professors think it's the best explanation. 3 of them in one, in unison, told me it's the best explanation. But I can tell you now, they haven't read him. They have not spent the time to read Darwin. Now he wrote, I think it's 3 books actually. He wrote On the Origin of the Species by Natural Selection. I won't go into, well, or the preservation of favored races. Excuse me, bloody long title did that. The title tripped me up. Anyway, he wrote, or it was published, he wrote it, but it was published posthumously. That means he died and then somebody put it out there. And I can see it once you read it. It's called Descent of Man. Now that book says some very interesting things in it. I'm not going to spoil it right now. So the suspense. So anyway, here we are questioning our very existence. Okay? And so God is coming to question. And those who didn't like God, hate Jesus Christ, hate the concept of laws that we have to behave by. I mean, why would a powerful nation want laws? We want to go around and giving civilization to these people who have gold in their hills. Or, you know, we want to bully these people to give us tea because that's got caffeine in it. And wow, what a joke. And speaking of drugs, we take tea from here and give you opium. Because they give us tea and they got the opium. And if we drug you and fight you in a war, you have the whole of China. Well, you got to take the drugs, man. Well, the truth, dude. So anyway, all right, I'm waffling. So we understand what's true, but there's now 2 worldviews, right? There's the worldview by virtue of people like William Paley. He wrote the book Watch on the Heath over there. And he was an intellectual that said, well, yeah, just because Roman, basically, yeah, we all know Roman Catholicism is full of whatever it was, but that doesn't mean there isn't a God. Suppose I were to be walking across the heath and I should kick a stone. I believe that stone was there possibly forever, and possibly in a new position going to remain there forever. But suppose that I should be walking up upon the heath and I see a watch. Now the watches at the time had, you know, the intricate, you know, it's one of them, a nice gold watch. Then one that you hold in the pendant that really are classic pieces that you open up and you can see the mechanisms. And he's saying basically, then I would propose that the intricacies that make this watch work had a designer. We work and nature is wonderful. How could this come from nothing? There had to have been a designer. So he proposed the argument that there is indeed a God. So you've got a worldview, oh, we're happy, you know, that's a good argument, no one can defeat that, that makes sense. And then you've got people questioning it. And believing in Darwin. But however, let's be clear. Darwin is called a theory of evolution, that's not a fact. Now they try to say, well, theories in science, shut up. Bacon already established what science is. It must be observable, it must be repeatable, testable. And no one's ever seen a transition of anything into anything. And you can't find a missing link, and how many times would we find a bag of bones and you use your artistic license, and now this bag of bones has got eyes and it's got hair and fur and all kind of stuff, and you say this is a missing link until we find out actually it's the jaw of an ass that you got the bones from. I mean the latest one, sorry, all you Afrocentrics, is Lucy. Oh Lord, I should have printed up the story about that. Bear with me, I'm still on education. But I'm emphasising the 2 worldviews, and where one doesn't like God and claims to be science, I'm just showing you it's not science, it's nonsense, that's what it is. 46 bones. There's 206 in the human body, but they've got 46 bones. And it is argued that one bone was found a mile away from the other and 7 foot deep in the ground. How did that work? I don't know, but 46 bones. With those 46 bones, artistic license, George Judas, monkey-like creature, they say, was found in Africa, in Ethiopia. And they called it Lucy. And the story behind that, Donald G. Hanson, who was the Indiana Jones at the time, he was given a license and the money to produce some evidence, and he's 2 weeks before his time's running out, he ain't found anything. And whilst he's digging around in the desert, on the radio, it's the Beatles. Lucy in the sky with diamonds, or whatever the damn thing. So he stopped. I'll call this Lucy. Oh, I found something. It's the missing link. And they've run with it. So now you see pictures of Lucy, right? Now, she's got hair. How would you determine that from 46 bones? And it's like, they don't. The other day, they printed an article that it's believed that Lucy died by falling out of a tree. I did not know you could do that. Furthermore, the fossil record is only a record of something that was, you cannot tell whether it was grandpa or grandchild, if it had its children, or what. You cannot say it's transitioning from what to what. Trilobite is a trilobite. Sorry, it's complete. But anyway, two worldviews. You would think in the 21st century that these people who push this theory will cease, but they don't. Right? God is the truth, the devil is a lie. So, we come to Karl Marx, who loves, I think his real name is Moses Mordecai Levy, but Karl Marx, he loves Darwin's book. And it is said, I haven't seen the evidence, that in Das Kapital, Marx's second book, I think it is, he congratulates, he acknowledges and salutes Charles Darwin, because he doesn't like God, right? Doesn't like God or the Bible. And Marx, this is very important for you guys in education. Marx proposes a new form of socialism. Now I said a new form because socialism, or the concept of socialism, had already been created. In this country we had the Welshman named Robert Owen, who set up his commune in Lanarkshire, Scotland, and he was a privateer, factory owner, very rich man, who saw the state of human beings in the Industrial Revolution and said, look, we could do better. And he, you know, the man responsible for a nursery for women. You know, if you listen to the feminists, you would think men have never done anything for women. I mean, it really is. I told you, indoctrination is not education. You've got to be a bit of a detective to and sat there, or dare to be wise yourself. So anyway, he's got this idea that people who are making money are abusing the people who they get to work for them. And that's not a good state of affairs, right? That's not fair, right? So he proposes that there's going to be a revolution and they will, you know, eat the rich, kill the rich, whatever it is. And then we'll have a utopia. Now, number one, the Communist Manifesto is not really original. But what is original about his hived off working, Charles Fourier wrote a tract, and who's the other guy? Considerant, a guy named Considerant, wrote a tract. All on social, their manifesto's up there. I was going to buy it the other day, but it's £1,000 for it now. Oh, I didn't have the money at the time, and it was not £1,000, but they know people like me are around, and I will get that text. So now you go to buy it, it's over £1,000 for I think it's 70-page or 120-page book, right? That's how some people keep knowledge out of our hands, right? Yeah, I went on Amazon. Of course I went on Amazon. That's where I thought it was £1,000. Oh, well, we'll have to wait for somebody to buy it and then print it out and rewrite it or whatever, re-edit it. So anyway, what was interesting in the Communist Manifesto, and I really should have printed this off, but believe what I say here, because you can go on the internet and read it for yourself. Can't remember the page number now. This is important. I've written it in my essay as well. He hates God. So, first of all, he sees the development of the capitalist West working. Real capital, real inventors, real thinking men, real producers of wealth, real producers of products, and we cannot say this did not happen. We cannot say this wasn't going on. And there is no other perfect game in town. It's the only game in town. So he doesn't like the fact that they're getting rich and they're getting... So he writes this tract. But in it, it's anti-God, it's anti-family, anti-female, right? All the kind of things that we take naturally as the building blocks of a society. Man meets woman, has family, that's the nuclei, and, you know, through education, you socialise your youth to be better citizens, more new and improved, creating and working and inventing, creating and working and inventing, and distributing your concepts and ideas not via the sword. You see, they kept us in a certain way that they keep doing it. But once they've dumbed us down, which they're doing right now, we will never catch wise, and we'll always be in their armies, foot soldiers dying en masse, whatever. The problem for Marx is, not only is it a bonkers theory, and just anti-Christianity, if you ask me, and anti-human, and just not workable. It didn't work. The theory sounds good, but it just didn't work. People actually would work. People would argue that those are my betters. Some people are happy to say to this day, I'm working class. Again, we behave a certain way, okay? Not everybody wants to be rich. Not everybody wants to eat foie gras. You know what I mean? And nobody cares. Some people, who cares if he's got a freaking Bugatti? Big deal. He's got it. You know, Happy Days maintaining it. Those cars cost a lot to maintain. So I'm just saying, the human condition is not that you can determine how it is. Alright. So the people like Karl Marx, a bunch of them, didn't like that. Because they thought, we got them now. So you've got a bunch of these disappointed Marxists are trying to figure out why didn't it work? What is it about the human that didn't make them revolt? Like they got them to do in France and so forth. And, you know, we destroyed their God and they rejected God now. They should have. Why didn't they and stuff? Well, they hadn't rejected God. They thought they would. And they thought, okay, if we were to infiltrate schools, colleges and so forth, we could push our theory. So a bunch of these guys that hate Jesus, a bunch of these guys, they emanated in a place called Frankfurt in Germany. And whilst Germany was going through its early turbulent time, there came a time when Germany started to pick up. These guys fled Germany and they went to New York. I think it's Chicago, New York. Chicago, New York. What's the university in New York? I think it's the one that Barack Obama said to have gone. Anyway, they fled to a university. It's all in here. But anyway, because they originated from Frankfurt, Germany, it's called the Frankfurt School. They were called the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School. And they've come up with these ideas of undermining everything that's good and proposing, as Marx did, anti-family and so forth. Because they want to enslave humanity. Excuse me. Who'd want to do that? Satan's spawn. So out of that school of thought, I'll soon finish, come two guys named Peter Berger and Thomas Luckman, and they write this trash. Now, one thing about trash, when you read trash, and you know it's trash if it uses English words, but you don't get the points that they're talking about. They're beating around the bush. Remember, God said, "Let your yea be yea and nay be nay." Speak clean and clear so I can understand you, right? But it's so verbose and built up, and I would say this is the height of white man speak with what tongue. You know what I mean? Say one thing, meaning another. Won't make your point clear, and when it's made clear and you understand it, you're like, really? right? Social Construction of Reality. That's what that book is called. And when I was at university, it's these people, and believers of this kind of faith, right? If you don't believe and cite all the people that they like, who are of that Marxist persuasion, it doesn't matter how well you write. It doesn't matter how much studying you've done. It doesn't matter how much you contextualize it. You're not doing what they want, and they don't like you for it, and they'll mark you down, and they did. And this is the book that turned me, really got me to understand it. It's called Social Construction by Vivian Burr. You read this. This basically says, I know you know what you know, and I know there's a reality, but come with me, I'll take you down the world. In order to get this, you've got to wipe your foot on the mat and leave your brains there. Kind of says that. Leave your brains at the door. Come with me, and I'll show you what this confusing crap is. And it's all the rage. And then, excuse me. So I decided I'm going to write a book about this, exposing the crap for what it is. I started, and now, I got a chance to go to another university to do my MA, further in education. So that book's on hold. But I bought this book, and this one's by a guy named Kenneth Gergen. And it's an invitation to social construction, second edition. And I'm reading this book, and it just helped me out. So good. Because near enough everything he proposes, I disagree with. And he's taking this thing for reality, and I disagree with it. Number one, I think I may be double talking, you're not quite understanding, and I haven't been that clear. That's the son of a bad teacher. But a good teacher is one who recognises maybe I should reiterate something. You know what you know. And we all know you know what you know because we know what truth is. We have a scientific way to determine what truth is. I told you that, you know that. And how we get to have ideas is because we reason. And we use logic to the utmost, right? And we have our witnesses and we all listen. We're educated and we can agree or disagree. And we've got the sands of time. God controls that. Today you don't agree. Tomorrow you might. And if you don't, your children will say, my predecessors were jackasses. I'm saying it now. This book tells you there is no absolute truth. What? I kid you not. There is no absolutes. No such thing as truth. And the argument they will argue is confusing, but stupid. Because you will experience something, it's true to you. And because I'll experience something, it's true to me. How are we to know? I know. That's what they're teaching in education. It's indoctrination. If you even say, and I'll tell you what this movement started in the 60s, late 60s. It's always when there's an explosion of something, these little crab lices arise and they put their views and start to celebrate with one another. Because these people will quote this guy will quote that guy, and they all quote each other. And then therefore, when you're in a university, you've got to quote these people, and you read their stuff, and all they do is quoting. No texture to it at all, right? Just rubbish. Repeating. So the point I was going to make, there is no such thing as absolute truth. Right? That's that. So my thing is, well, that's circular reasoning. Because if there is no absolute truth, where's the bin? Because you can't be true either. But what you're actually saying, your truth is not true, but mine is. And they fill the universities with girls, and girls only want to impress mum. They say, yes, I know I was with that baggy pants boy, but look at me now, ain't I good? Give me brownie point, love me again. You know what I mean? And by the way, there's a dance going on, can you look after little Johnny again? Alright, that might be underhanded, but they know full well, that since they love Darwin, in Descent of Man, says men are more intellectually superior to women. It's something I agree with, but I mean, this video may get pulled. I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't tut, not with me. No, I have to be very good at what I do. But they've got the universities all touchy-feely with their my truth, so therefore my truth is my truth. You hurt me, so therefore ban him, stop his speech. I need a safe space. He's, what's the other thing? Microaggression. He looked at me, and he insinuated, ban the speech. Here we go again. We've come out of that. If you really feel like you're being hard done by what I've said, reason it, produce an argument. That's how we develop, and we'll find out whether you're faking it or making it. So the point is, there is a reality, and we have all methods to find out how to do that, right? How is that good for science? Some of these emotions, how is that good for education? If you baby everybody. I mean, this is where we are. That's why I thought I'd have this video talking about that which we know and we don't know about. We shouldn't disregard. To disregard God is folly, because you wouldn't do that to love. You certainly wouldn't do it for time, but it ticks away, and you're like, well, unless you've got an implement there on the wall, I mean, I think I must have done about an hour's worth of rambling, maybe more. I could talk. Excuse me. So, this little journey into sound. The word is sound. Sound is education. Good news. In the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. Speak of it, because it's true. Okay? Be honest and let your yay be yay. Do not get seduced. Where's my Aristotle? Now, this is my Aristotle. I think this is my favourite Aristotle book, because he really just goes into some stands the test of time in my view. This one's called Nicomachean Ethics. Nicomachean Ethics covers more ground for me than the politics. What's the other one I've got? Anyway, I've got a few of him, and that's all. I fill my mind with books and read. Not just the reading list that they give you, because I can read a few of the stuff with the reading list, but they're all co-signing one another. They believe in a particular theory. That's it, right? So all the writings have to approve that theory, and they've got blinkers. They don't think outside of their own box. It's a bit like, I knew Donald Trump was going to win. These guys don't, because they've covered the media with, and they think that everybody, but they don't realise people are waking up. It's not that we love Donald Trump. We just don't like being lied to anymore. Had enough. I mean, at this moment, Britain, Theresa May has mentioned there was a poison assassination. A son, a daughter, and a man, right? And the father and daughter. Now, I don't know who he is, but it seems like he was a spy. For who, I don't know. But the investigation, I don't know that they've done it. But they're swearing blind at the Russians, and she's given Putin 24 hours to tell us about it. And I'm thinking, who does that? You need to get your 24 hours worth of documentation and evidence, and then go by the embassy and hand it to them and await the channels, isn't it? You don't go, like Wild Billy, you got until sundown. What's Britain going to do against Russia? Oh, I get it. The banks are going to have a coalition to fight and break down. It's happened before, hasn't it? You see, education is something you get to, and being a historian, you get to recognise the past. You can certainly see what the present is, and therefore you have the ability to predict what might happen in the future. It doesn't make me a soothsayer. It's behaviour. Okay? So, I think I covered the main points of, possibly I've told you why I like education, and if you didn't know, then you probably have a fair idea that this guy's a freaking, he's into education. Yawn. I don't know that I agree with him. Oh, yawn. These people have inserted themselves in our schools, colleges and universities. This is where labour is. Now, I want to give you something, and it's an education, it's something that you will agree with, I believe. And if you don't, then you've got some maturing to do. Now, I'm not a Tory, and I was raised to vote Labour and all that stuff. But since I would say Jesus isn't a socialist, or would never be a socialist, and would never be... Because we've got to understand, in 1870, the Education Act in this country established that there should be schools, and there should be children at a certain age going to school to a certain age. Over the years, they introduced new to get until you got the school that you got at the moment. Well, 1870. In 1870, I don't believe there was a Germany. That might have been the first time there was an actual Germany, a unified Germany, right? It was either 1870 or 1871. Again, the same with Italy, under Garibaldi. Before 1870 or 1871, there wasn't an Italy, but under Garibaldi there was a unified. Things go on. But in that time, rich people, like Robert Owen and many others, they were setting up schools, chartered schools, dame schools, even the establishment of schools as an institutional block where kids go to. People with money do it. Do you understand? Because once you've got money, you be benevolent. You know, you bankroll things, you create things. And schools are, if you come from a town, and this is your town, you look around your town. People do this all the time, but the Marxists, they really find history and tell you that's not true. The rich want to keep getting richer and the poor get poor. Well, that's now. Because we've been living under Marxist lies. That's why you see it. That's why they get away with it. My point is this. If you believe in a man and a woman coming together, getting married and having children, you're conservative. The funny thing is about my parents, they did exactly that. And they took their vows. And in struggling in a country that wasn't overly accepting of them, they raised us. And through tough times they raised us. That's a conservative value. Unless you read the Communist Manifesto, in which it says we want to ban all morality, we want to army, basically we want to arm single women. Do you understand? They don't mind you being single because you break society down. Once you take the woman and you flatter her and she thinks she can do what she wants and the rest of it, and you make laws, like you look at the laws that are being made. They don't tell women, you know, behave yourself. Behave yourself. No, you can carry on doing what you do. What they're going to do is bring in a law so you can carry on doing the stupidness that you're doing. And if women are honest, they'll say, you know what, you're right. And they will know that I'm a protector of women, but I am not a feminist. I can't stand them. They're liars. And the whole thing is a scam. So this is where being a conservative will say, well, no. We believe in all that is good and we want to maintain it. And if we've done something bad, it's like if we did something bad yesteryear. You make up for it once you can. You say sorry. Human nature. Give the man a chance. Give him a second chance. You know. So anyway, I'm coughing and spluttering, so I'm not feeling that very well anyway. And this is my video on education. And I should watch it to find out, did I actually make the point I actually wanted to make? Phase 2 education is being influenced by these guys, these thinkers. These people that don't believe there is a truth. These people that promote safe spaces, microaggressions, the whole theory behind transgenderism and homosexuality. All of these things, that's your lefty for you. Okay? Now, I've said a few things, and I'm not going to go into them, because this video will probably be too long, and you'll need time to give a good exposition. So some of these difficult topics that some would say, you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't say that. Well, it's up for a debate. No, it's not, no, it's a fact, no, it's a fact. Well, I disagree. And even if it was a fact, I'm contesting that it isn't. It's up for debate. And so therefore, to make a law against debate because you don't like the fact that somebody is upsetting somebody over a topic that they want to be shut down, is the high toll. It's like reverting back to the Roman universal where the Dark Ages, you couldn't say none. You know he's chatting rubbish, but you can't say none because they got the power to burn you at the stake. Everything is worth a discussion and a debate. With respect to everything, right? There's not one topic, because we're about learning, exploring, developing, and maintaining good societies and good human beings. So with that, in Jesus' name, thank you.